Marina clutched her 7 months pregnant belly and stepped through the snow toward the glowing windows of Manhattan's most exclusive steakhouse. Christmas lights twinkled overhead, carolers sang on the corner, and families hurried past with shopping bags full of gifts. Marina had nothing. No coat warm enough for December, no money for food, no place to sleep except under a bridge where the wind cut like knives. She pushed open the restaurant door, and warmth rushed over her frozen face. "Mom, do you have a reservation?" the hostess asked, looking Marina up and down with barely concealed disgust. Marina's clothes were soaked from melted snow, torn at the seams, and her shoes had holes that let in the cold. I just need to ask someone for help," Marina whispered. The hostess's expression hardened. "This is a private establishment. If you're here to beg, you need to leave immediately." But Marina had already spotted him. Alexander Sanders, the billionaire businessman she'd researched for weeks, sitting alone at a corner table, cutting into a steak that cost more than she'd earned in a month when she still had a job. Marina walked straight to his table, ignoring the hostess calling security. "Excuse me, sir," Marina said, her voice shaking from cold and hunger and desperation. "Is there anything you're not going to eat? Anything at all? I'm so hungry." Alexander looked up from his $600 prime ribeye, irritation flashing across his handsome face, until he actually saw her. A young pregnant woman, soaking wet on Christmas Eve, eyes brimming with tears and raw desperation. Something unfamiliar stirred in his chest, something that felt almost like his frozen heart cracking open. "How long has it been since you ate?" Alexander asked, his irritation melting into concern. 3 days, sir," Marina answered, touching her swollen stomach protectively. "I swear I'm not an addict or anything. I lost my job when they found out I was pregnant. Nobody wants to hire someone who'll need maternity leave right away." The entire restaurant fell silent. Wealthy diners celebrating Christmas Eve set down their forks and stared. Some whispered to each other with curled lips and judgmental eyes. "How disgusting," a woman dripping in diamonds and holiday jewelry said loudly. "How do they even let people like that in here on Christmas Eve? It ruins the atmosphere." A man in an expensive suit muttered to his companion, "Look at her. Just another con artist. I bet she isn't even really pregnant. It's probably a scam to get sympathy during the holidays." Another woman added with a sneer, "She probably planned to get pregnant just to manipulate kind people. That's how those people operate." Anger rose in Alexander against the cruel people around him, people who claimed to celebrate the spirit of Christmas while mocking a desperate pregnant woman. He looked back at Marina and saw that she was trembling, not only from the cold, but from shame. "Sit here beside me," Alexander said firmly, pulling out the chair next to him. "Waiter, please bring another plate for my guest, and make sure it's a full meal. Appetizer, main course, dessert, everything." The waiter blanched, glancing nervously at the other wealthy patrons. "Mr. Sanders, she can't stay here," he hissed under his breath. "She'll scare off the other clients. This is Christmas Eve, our busiest night." "The other guests are complaining." Alexander's voice rose loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "I said bring another plate, and add a very sweet orange juice while you're at it. In fact, bring her hot chocolate too. It's Christmas Eve, and this woman deserves something warm." Marina could hardly believe it. No one had ever been kind to her like this, especially not during the holidays when everyone seemed to care more about their perfect celebrations than about suffering people. "Are you sure, sir? I'm very dirty and wet. I'll ruin your nice dinner." Alexander's expression softened. "You're fine. You just need help." "What's your name?" Marina hesitated, then whispered, "Marina, sir. Marina Davis." Alexander smiled gently. "Marina, I'm Alexander, and today, Christmas Eve, you're going to eat whatever you want. Consider it my gift to you." When the waiter returned with a scowl and set down the plate, Marina began to eat slowly, savoring every bite like it was the most precious thing in the world. Alexander watched, his heart tightening with emotions he'd suppressed for years behind walls of wealth and loneliness. "Marina, where do you live?" he asked quietly. "On the street, sir. I sleep under the overpass near the Hudson when it doesn't rain. When it does rain, or when it's too cold like tonight, I try to find a church or shelter, but they're always full during the holidays." "And the baby's father?" Alexander asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Marina stopped eating and lowered her head, shame washing over her face. He ran when he found out I was pregnant. Said he wouldn't support a child with some girl from the slums. Said I was trying to trap him and ruin his life. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen him since. Alexander's jaw clenched with anger at a man he'd never met. How could anyone abandon a pregnant woman, especially right before Christmas? Marina, do you have any family? Alexander asked gently. Anyone who could help you? Marina shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. No, sir. My mum died of cancer when I was 16. I've been on my own ever since. I had a job as a waitress, but when I started showing at 5 months, they said I was bad for business and fired me. I tried to find other work, but nobody wants to hire someone who's obviously pregnant. They all say to come back after the baby's born, but her voice broke. By then it'll be too late. Alexander looked into Marina's eyes and saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. A real person with pain and dreams. So different from the fake, superficial people who filled his world. Everyone in his life wanted something from him, his money, his connections, his status. But Marina hadn't even known who he was when she approached. She'd just been hungry and desperate and hoping for basic human kindness on Christmas Eve. Marina, Alexander said carefully, I want to make you a proposal. Marina's eyes widened with fear. What kind of proposal, sir? Her voice was wary. Everyone who had ever proposed something to her had wanted something awful in return. Alexander saw her fear and spoke quickly. Nothing inappropriate, I promise. I have a big empty house. A mansion, actually. It's just me rattling around in 20 rooms. You can stay there until the baby is born. Your own room, your own space. Nothing weird, just a safe, warm place to live through the winter and have your baby safely. Marina began to cry, real sobs that shook her thin shoulders. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. This could be a trick. I could be lying about everything. Alexander shook his head. I don't think you're lying. And even if you were, even if this whole thing is somehow a con, I'd rather be fooled while trying to help someone than become so cynical that I walk past a pregnant woman on Christmas Eve and do nothing. Call it my Christmas gift to you, a safe place to have your baby. Marina gripped Alexander's hand across the table, her fingers cold despite the warm restaurant. Thank you, sir. I think God sent you to save me tonight. I was starting to give up hope. Alexander felt something shift deep in his chest. Maybe God sent you to save me, Marina. I've been so lonely and empty for so long. Maybe helping you will help me remember what really matters. He signaled for the check. Shall we? Let's get you somewhere warm for Christmas. They left the restaurant together, Alexander draping his expensive suit jacket over Marina's shoulders while snow fell softly around them. People on the sidewalk gaped at the millionaire businessman helping a pregnant homeless woman, especially on Christmas Eve when everyone was supposed to be with their own families. They climbed into Alexander's luxury car, and Marina had never felt leather that soft or heat that warm. Christmas music played softly from the speakers. Silent night filling the car with peace. Marina, I want you to know something, Alexander said as he drove through the snowy streets decorated with lights and wreaths. From this day forward, you're not a homeless woman. You're a mother-to-be, and you deserve respect and dignity, especially at Christmas. Marina cried with emotion, clutching the jacket around her shoulders. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt hope blooming in her chest like a flower pushing through frozen ground. For the first time in years, Alexander felt he was doing something that truly mattered. Something that wasn't about profit margins or business deals, but about simple human kindness. They arrived at a mansion in Manhattan's Upper East Side, and Marina was stunned. The house was enormous, covered in elegant white Christmas lights, with a massive wreath on the front door and garland wrapped around every column. My God, Marina whispered, staring up at the beautiful home. How does anyone live alone in a place this big, especially at Christmas? It must be so lonely. Alexander looked at the mansion he'd bought 5 years ago to prove his success, and suddenly saw it through Marina's eyes. Empty, cold, despite all its luxury, a monument to isolation rather than achievement. I think, Alexander said quietly, as he pulled into the heated garage, I'm the one who's going to be saved here, Marina. I have so much money and so little joy. Maybe you're my Christmas miracle." They went inside, and Marina stared with her mouth open. Expensive artwork, designer furniture, a grand staircase decorated with fresh pine garland. But what caught her attention most was the Christmas tree in the living room. 12 feet tall, professionally decorated with thousands of lights and ornaments, yet somehow looking sad and lonely in the vast empty space. "That's the most beautiful tree I've ever seen," Marina whispered. "It must have cost a fortune to decorate." Alexander looked at the tree his decorator had arranged and for the first time realized it had no soul, no memories, no love behind it. "Use any room you like," Alexander told Marina, pushing away his melancholy. "There's plenty of food in the kitchen. Help yourself to anything. There's a bathroom in every bedroom with hot water and clean towels. Make yourself at home." "I don't know how to thank you," Marina said, one hand on her belly. "The baby's already moving more since I ate. I think she's happy." Alexander smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. "She? You know it's a girl?" Marina nodded shyly. "I went to a free clinic once. They did an ultrasound and told me. I'm having a daughter. I'm going to name her Hope, because that's all I have left." Alexander felt his throat tighten. Hope. That's a beautiful name. He cleared his throat. "Tomorrow we'll go for a full prenatal checkup, a real one at the best hospital in the city. And we'll buy clothes for you and things for the baby. Everything you need." Marina protested. "That would be so expensive." Alexander interrupted gently. "Marina, I earn more money in a day than you've probably seen in your entire life. Let me take care of you and Hope. That's all I want for Christmas. To know I helped someone who really needed it." That night, Marina took her first hot shower in months. She stood under the steaming water and cried with gratitude, washing away layers of dirt and shame and despair. She found the softest pajamas she'd ever worn laid out on the bed. Alexander must have put them there, and climbed between clean sheets that smelled like lavender. She placed a hand on her stomach and whispered to her baby, "Hope, my darling, our life is going to change. This man is an angel sent to us on Christmas Eve." Alexander lay awake that Christmas Eve night, staring at the ceiling of his master bedroom and listening to the silence of his enormous house. For the first time in years, the mansion didn't feel quite so empty. Somewhere down the hall, Marina was sleeping safely and warmly, and knowing that filled him with a strange contentment he hadn't felt since. He couldn't even remember when. The last time he'd felt genuinely happy wasn't about closing a deal or buying something expensive. It had been years ago, before his world became all about wealth and status and keeping up appearances. The next morning, Christmas Day, Alexander woke early and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. He wanted Marina to wake up to something special, something that showed her this wasn't just charity, but genuine care. He made pancakes, bacon, fresh fruit, and hot chocolate with marshmallows. The kitchen filled with warmth and delicious smells, and for the first time in his adult life, Alexander understood why people loved Christmas morning. It wasn't about expensive gifts or fancy decorations. It was about doing something kind for someone you cared about. Marina appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking almost unrecognizable. Clean, rested, wearing the soft pajamas, her dark hair still damp from another shower she'd taken just to enjoy the hot water. "Merry Christmas," Alexander said with a smile. "I made breakfast." Marina's eyes filled with tears. She seemed to cry a lot, but Alexander was learning that after months of hardship, small kindnesses hit her hard. "No one's ever made me Christmas breakfast before, not since my mum died." They ate together at the kitchen island, and Marina told him more about her life. She'd grown up poor, but happy with her mother, celebrating Christmas with homemade gifts and simple joy. When her mother died of cancer, 16-year-old Marina had been alone in the world. She'd worked various jobs: waitress, retail clerk, house cleaner, always barely surviving, never getting ahead. Then she'd met Tyler, a charming mechanic who'd promised to love her forever. But when she got pregnant, Tyler had shown his true colors and abandoned her. "I was so stupid," Marina said quietly, staring at her plate. "I thought he loved me. I thought we'd get married and be a family. Instead, he called me trailer trash and said he wasn't wasting his life on a baby he didn't want." Alexander reached over and squeezed her hand. You weren't stupid. You were hopeful. There's a difference. He's the one who failed, not you. Marina looked at their joined hands and felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. Gratitude mixed with something warmer, something that scared her because it was so new and unexpected. After breakfast, Alexander kept his promise. They went to the best hospital in Manhattan, where Alexander's name got them immediate attention despite it being Christmas Day. The doctors ran a full prenatal workup, and Marina lay on the examination table watching the ultrasound screen with wonder and fear mixed together. Is she okay? Marina kept asking. Is my baby healthy? The doctor smiled reassuringly. Let me see. Yes, the baby looks good. Strong heartbeat, good movement. Then the doctor paused, studying the screen more carefully. Wait, there's something I need to check. Alexander tensed. What's wrong? The doctor took measurements and checked various angles. Nothing's wrong exactly, but I'm confused about the dates. Marina, you said you're 7 months pregnant? Marina nodded. Yes, I think so. I haven't been able to afford regular checkups, so I'm estimating based on She blushed. When the baby was conceived. The doctor shook his head slowly. According to these measurements, you're not 7 months pregnant. You're at full term. 9 months. This baby could come any day now. Marina's face went white. What? But I calculated. The doctor showed her the ultrasound measurements. See here? The baby is fully developed and in position for delivery. I'm actually surprised you haven't gone into labor yet. Your due date based on these measurements was about a week ago. Alexander gripped Marina's hand. Does that mean she's in danger? Is it bad that the baby hasn't come yet? The doctor shook his head. Not necessarily. Every pregnancy is different, but we need to monitor this closely. Marina, do you have somewhere safe to stay? Because this baby could arrive at any moment. She's staying with me, Alexander said firmly. I'll make sure she gets to the hospital immediately if labor starts. The doctor nodded approvingly. Good. Marina, I'm also concerned about your nutritional state. You're severely underweight for this stage of pregnancy. Your blood work shows anemia and other deficiencies. You've been malnourished for quite some time. He turned to Alexander. She needs rest, good food, and minimal stress. The baby is remarkably healthy considering the circumstances, but the mother needs intensive care. They left the hospital with prescriptions for vitamins and supplements, instructions for bed rest, and a warning that labor could start at any moment. In the car, Marina was quiet and pale. I messed up, she whispered. I didn't even know how far along I was. I'm such a bad mother already. Alexander pulled over and turned to face her. You are not a bad mother. You survived on the streets while pregnant and kept your baby alive and healthy. That makes you the strongest mother I've ever known. But I should have, Marina started. Should have what? Alexander interrupted. Should have afforded medical care when you were homeless and starving. Should have magically known your dates when you had no doctor to tell you. Stop blaming yourself for things you couldn't control. Marina started crying again, and Alexander pulled her into an awkward hug across the center console. You're safe now, Marina. You and Hope are both safe. That's what matters. Over the next few days, Alexander transformed into something he'd never been before, a caretaker. He made sure Marina ate nutritious meals every few hours. He set up a nursery in the room next to hers, spending a fortune on furniture and supplies and clothes for a baby girl. He installed baby monitors and bought every book he could find about childbirth and newborn care. His business associates called wondering where he was, and for the first time in his career, Alexander told them he was busy with something more important than work. You're doing too much, Marina protested weakly as Alexander carried in the 5th shopping bag of baby clothes. This is too expensive. You've already done so much. Alexander set down the bags and sat beside her on the couch. Marina, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to believe me. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I own 3 houses I never visit. I have cars I never drive. I invest in art I never look at. All that wealth sits there meaning nothing. But buying clothes for Hope, setting up a nursery, taking care of you, that means something. That makes the money worth having. Marina looked at this handsome, wealthy man who'd taken her in on Christmas Eve and turned her life around in a matter of days. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked quietly. "You could help anyone. You could donate to charities or foundations. Why me, specifically?" Alexander thought carefully before answering, "Because when I saw you in that restaurant, I saw someone who needed help right now. Not a statistic or a cause, but a real person standing in front of me. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could actually make a difference in someone's life. You gave me a purpose I didn't know I was missing." What Alexander didn't know, what Marina would feel guilty about for months to come, was that their meeting hadn't been quite as random as he believed. Marina had been watching him for weeks, learning his patterns, planning her approach. She knew he ate at that restaurant every Friday night. She knew he always sat at the same table. She knew he was wealthy and unmarried, and according to every article she'd read online, surprisingly kind for a billionaire. She had deliberately chosen that night, that place, that moment to accidentally cross his path. But what Marina hadn't planned for, what she couldn't have anticipated, was that Alexander would be genuinely kind instead of just performatively generous. She hadn't expected him to look at her with real concern instead of contempt. She hadn't expected to actually like him as a person beyond just appreciating his wealth. And she definitely hadn't expected to start falling for him, which was a complication her simple plan hadn't accounted for. The plan had been, secure his help, have the baby safely, then disappear with enough money to start fresh. But now, watching Alexander assemble baby furniture while humming Christmas carols, Marina felt her calculated scheme crumbling into something messy and real and terrifying. On December 28th, 3 days after Christmas, Marina woke at 3 a.m. with a pain so intense she screamed. Alexander came running in his pajamas, his hair disheveled and his face panicked. "Marina, what's wrong?" Marina gripped her stomach, her face twisted in agony. "The baby, something's wrong, it hurts." Alexander didn't waste time asking questions. He scooped Marina up in his arms and ran to the car, not bothering with coats or shoes, despite the freezing winter night. He laid her across the back seat and drove toward the hospital like a man possessed, running red lights and honking at anyone who got in his way. "Hang on, Marina," Alexander said urgently, checking her in the rearview mirror. "We're almost there, just hang on." Marina was crying and groaning in the back seat, her face pale and sweaty. "Alexander, if something happens to me, if I don't make it," Alexander interrupted fiercely, "you're going to make it. You and Hope are both going to make it. I won't accept any other outcome." But his hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and his heart was pounding with fear he'd never experienced before. They reached the hospital, and Alexander carried Marina through the emergency entrance, shouting for help. Nurses rushed over with a wheelchair and immediately wheeled Marina toward the maternity ward. "Sir, are you the father?" a nurse asked as they rushed down the corridor. Alexander hesitated only a fraction of a second. "Yes," he said firmly, "I'm the father." The nurse nodded and didn't question it further, and something shifted in Alexander's chest as he realized he'd just claimed Marina's baby as his own, without hesitation. In the delivery room, Marina gripped Alexander's hand so tightly she left marks. The pain was overwhelming, worse than anything she'd imagined. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "It's too much. I can't." Alexander smoothed her sweat-soaked hair back from her forehead. "Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know. You survived months on the streets pregnant. You can survive this." The doctor examined Marina and looked concerned. "The baby's in distress. Her heart rate is dropping. We need to deliver now." "Is she going to be okay?" Marina cried out. "Please tell me my baby's going to be okay." The doctor's face was serious. "We're going to do everything we can. Marina, I need you to push when I tell you. Can you do that?" Marina nodded weakly, exhausted and terrified. Alexander kept holding her hand, kept murmuring encouragement, kept being the anchor she desperately needed. "You can do this, Marina. Hope needs you to be strong. I need you to be strong." After what felt like hours, but was only 45 minutes, a baby's cry filled the room, strong and loud, and absolutely perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, holding up a tiny squirming baby covered in vernix and blood and beautiful beyond words. "She's healthy, good color, good lungs." Marina collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing with relief. Alexander stared at the baby with tears streaming down his face, overcome by an emotion he couldn't even name. The nurse cleaned the baby quickly and placed her on Marina's chest, and Alexander watched mother and daughter meet for the first time. "Hope," Marina whispered, touching her daughter's tiny face with trembling fingers. "My beautiful Hope. We made it. We're both okay." The baby quieted immediately at her mother's voice, her tiny eyes trying to focus on the face above her. Alexander couldn't look away from the scene, this perfect moment of pure love and relief and joy. "She's beautiful," he said hoarsely. "She's absolutely perfect, Marina." Marina looked up at him, with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you for getting us here safely. Thank you for everything." The doctor finished his examination and came over with good news. "Mother and baby are both healthy. Marina, you did amazingly well given your condition. The baby is 7 pounds, 3 ounces, a good weight. All her vitals are excellent." He looked at Alexander. "Dad, would you like to cut the cord?" Alexander froze, suddenly aware that he wasn't actually the father, that he was an imposter in this moment. But Marina reached out and grabbed his hand. "Yes," she said firmly, "he would. Please." So Alexander cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, officially severing the physical connection between mother and daughter while simultaneously becoming forever connected to both of them himself. The nurses took the baby to clean and measure her properly, and Marina was moved to a recovery room. Alexander followed like a shadow, unwilling to leave them alone for even a moment. "Sir, your wife needs rest," a nurse said gently. "You should go home and sleep. Come back in the morning." Alexander looked at Marina lying pale and exhausted in the hospital bed, and he couldn't imagine leaving her. "I'm staying," he said firmly. "I'll sleep in the chair. I'm not going anywhere." The nurse seemed about to argue, but saw the determination on his face and gave up. "Fine, but let her rest. She's been through a lot." Alexander nodded and settled into the uncomfortable hospital chair, watching Marina sleep. Around 4 a.m., a nurse brought baby Hope in for feeding, and Alexander watched with wonder as Marina nursed her daughter for the first time. "You're a natural," Alexander said softly. Marina smiled tiredly. "I'm terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing." Alexander laughed quietly. "Join the club. I've been terrified since the moment I carried you screaming into this hospital." Marina looked at him in the dim hospital room light. "Alexander, can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Did you mean it when you told the nurse you were Hope's father? Or were you just saying that so they'd let you stay?" Alexander thought carefully before answering. "I said it because in that moment I felt like her father. I know I'm not. Biologically, genetically, I'm nothing to her. But I've been with you through everything. I've cared about her since before she was born. I held your hand while you brought her into the world. In every way that matters except DNA, I feel like her father." Marina's eyes filled with tears again. "Alexander, you barely know me. This is too much to ask of anyone." "You didn't ask," Alexander interrupted gently. "I'm offering. Marina, I want to be in Hope's life. I want to be in your life, if you'll let me." Marina looked at him, at this kind, wealthy man who'd rescued her on Christmas Eve and turned her entire world upside down in the span of a week. "I'd like that," she whispered. "I'd like that very much." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Hope sleep, neither of them knowing that Marina's carefully constructed lies were about to unravel and destroy everything they were building. Marina and Hope came home from the hospital on New Year's Eve, and Alexander had transformed the mansion into a sanctuary for them. The nursery was perfect, soft colors, comfortable furniture, and enough supplies to care for triplets, let alone one baby. "This is too much," Marina protested weakly as Alexander carried sleeping Hope in her car seat. "You've spent a fortune." Alexander shook his head. "Stop worrying about money. I want you both to have everything you need." The first few weeks were exhausting and beautiful in equal measure. Hope woke every 2 hours to eat. Marina was overwhelmed and healing and grateful. Alexander surprised everyone, including himself, by being a natural with the baby. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floors at 2 a.m. when Hope wouldn't stop crying, and sang off-key lullabies that somehow always worked. "You're better at this than I am," Marina said one exhausted night, watching Alexander rock Hope back to sleep. "I keep thinking I'm doing everything wrong." "You're not," Alexander assured her gently. "You're an amazing mother. Hope is lucky to have you." Marina felt guilt twist in her stomach, the guilt that had been growing heavier each day since Christmas. Alexander was so good, so genuinely kind, and she had manipulated him from the very beginning. Yes, she'd been desperate and pregnant and homeless, but she'd also deliberately targeted him, planned their accidental meeting, played on his sympathy. What had started as a calculated con was now something real and precious, and Marina didn't know how to live with the deception. By mid-January, Marina was stronger and Hope was thriving. Alexander suggested Marina come work at his company as his personal assistant. Not because he needed one, but because he knew Marina wanted independence and purpose beyond just being a mother. "I can't work for you," Marina protested. "I don't have any experience. I'll mess everything up." Alexander smiled. "Then I'll teach you. You're smart, Marina. I've seen how quickly you learn. Come to the office with me. We'll figure it out together." So Marina began working at Sanders Industries, and she was surprised to discover she was actually good at it. She learned quickly, organized efficiently, and had a natural ability to read people that served her well in business meetings. Alexander's staff were initially suspicious. Everyone assumed she was just the boss's girlfriend getting a fake job. But Marina proved herself through hard work and competence. Within a month, she was handling complex scheduling, reviewing contracts, and making herself genuinely useful. That's when Richard, the finance manager, started paying attention to her. Richard was handsome in a slick, calculated way. Expensive suits, perfect hair, charming smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Marina, right?" He approached her desk one afternoon. "You're doing great work here, much better than Alexander's last 3 assistants." Marina smiled politely. "Thank you, I'm still learning." Richard leaned against her desk. "You're being modest. I've been impressed. We should grab lunch sometime, compare notes about working for Alexander." Marina felt uncomfortable but didn't want to be rude. "That's kind of you, but I usually eat with Alexander." Richard's smile tightened slightly. "Of course. Well, the offer stands if you change your mind." He walked away, and Marina felt oddly unsettled, though she couldn't say why. What she didn't know was that Richard had immediately recognized her from somewhere, and it wasn't from the office. He'd seen her before, weeks before Christmas, and he was very interested in figuring out where and why. That evening, Alexander suggested taking Marina out to celebrate her successful first month at the company. "Let's go to Lorenzo's. It's this beautiful Italian restaurant with the best food in the city." Marina agreed, and they left Hope with a trusted nanny Alexander had hired. At Lorenzo's, they were seated at a romantic corner table with candles and soft music, and Marina realized this felt less like a celebration dinner and more like a date. Alexander seemed nervous, which was adorable on a man who commanded boardrooms without breaking a sweat. "Marina," Alexander began carefully, "I want to talk about us, about what we are to each other." Marina's heart started pounding. "Okay," she said cautiously. Alexander took her hand across the table. "I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other for 3 weeks. But I feel something with you that I've never felt with anyone else. You're brave and strong and funny and kind. I love spending time with you. I love taking care of Hope. I love—" He stopped and took a breath. "I think I'm falling in love with you." Marina felt like she couldn't breathe. This was everything she'd wanted when she first targeted him. His affection, his commitment, his love. But now that it was happening, all she felt was crushing guilt. "Alexander, you don't really know me," she said quietly. "What if there are things about me, about my past, that would change how you feel?" Alexander shook his head. "I know you were homeless and desperate. I know you've struggled. None of that changes how I feel about you now." "But what if—" Marina started. Alexander interrupted by pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Marina's eyes went wide. "I'm not proposing," Alexander said quickly, seeing her panic. "Not yet. It's too soon for that. But I wanted you to have this." He opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace with 3 small pendants, one with the initial M, one with H, and one with A. For Marina, Hope, and Alexander. The three of us. Our family. Marina started crying. She seemed to cry at everything these days and let Alexander fasten the necklace around her neck. It's beautiful. Thank you. They finished dinner in a warm haze of tentative romance, and when Alexander drove them home, he kissed her for the first time, soft and gentle and full of promise. Marina kissed him back, her heart breaking because she knew this couldn't last. Eventually he would find out the truth about how they'd really met, and when he did, everything would shatter. What Marina didn't know was that the unraveling had already begun. Richard had finally remembered where he'd seen Marina before, at a coffee shop near his apartment 3 weeks before Christmas, deep in conversation with another woman who looked exactly like her. Richard was intrigued enough to do some digging, and what he found was explosive. Marina Davis had a twin sister named Marissa Davis. Marissa had a criminal record, small-time cons, check fraud, identity theft. And according to his sources, the twins had been in contact right before Marina randomly met Alexander. Richard sat in his office reviewing the information with a cold smile. This was perfect leverage. He could destroy Marina's relationship with Alexander, position himself as the hero who discovered the truth, and maybe, just maybe, win Marina for himself in the aftermath. He'd wanted her since the moment she started working at Sanders Industries, but he needed to be strategic. Going to Alexander directly might backfire. Better to confront Marina first, see if he could manipulate the situation to his advantage. Meanwhile, Marina was about to receive an unwelcome visitor. She was home alone with Hope one afternoon when the doorbell rang. Marina answered it cautiously and froze. Standing on the doorstep was a woman who looked exactly like her. Same face, same hair, same eyes. But where Marina looked healthy and well cared for now, this woman looked harder, sharper, like she'd lived a rougher life. "Hello, sister," the woman said with a cold smile. "Surprise." "Marissa," Marina breathed, shock rooting her to the spot. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" Marissa pushed past her into the mansion, looking around with calculating eyes. "Nice place, very nice. You really hit the jackpot with this one, didn't you?" Marina grabbed her sister's arm. "You need to leave. Right now, you can't be here." Marissa shook her off. "Relax, sis. I'm not here to mess up your con, I'm here to help you." Marina pulled Marissa into the kitchen, away from sleeping Hope. "This isn't a con anymore. I care about Alexander. I care about this life. Whatever you're planning, I don't want any part of it." Marissa laughed. "You care about him? Oh, that's rich. You targeted him, Marina. You researched him for weeks. You planned that whole homeless pregnant woman routine down to the last detail. Don't pretend this is some great love story. You played him and you won. Now we both get to benefit." "How do you know about that?" Marina demanded, fear creeping up her spine. "I never told you the details." Marissa smiled cruelly. "You told me everything, remember? All those texts before Christmas? How you found the perfect mark. How you were going to approach him at his favorite restaurant. How you'd play the desperate mother-to-be and milk his guilt." She pulled out her phone and showed Marina screenshots. "I saved them all, just in case." Marina felt her world tilting. "Why would you save those? Why would you—" Understanding dawned. "You're going to blackmail me." Marissa shrugged. "Not blackmail, partnership. You've got access to millions now. I want my cut. 20% of everything you get from Alexander, or I show him these texts and tell him exactly who you really are. A con artist who played him from day one." Marina's hands shook. "I can't do that. I won't. What we have now is real." "Is it?" Marissa interrupted. "Does Alexander know about Tyler? Does he know that Hope's real father is alive and didn't actually abandon you? That you told him you'd handle the pregnancy alone because you had a better plan?" Marina went pale. "How do you know about Tyler?" Marissa's smile was vicious. "I've been watching you for weeks, sis. I know everything. Tyler's been looking for you, by the way. Wants to meet his daughter. Wonder how your billionaire boyfriend would feel about the baby daddy showing up." Before Marina could respond, Alexander's voice came from the foyer. "Marina, I'm home early. Where are you?" Both women froze. Marissa grabbed Marina's wrist and hissed, "Get rid of him, or I'll tell him everything right now." Marina's mind raced. She plastered on a smile and walked to the foyer. "Hi, I wasn't expecting you so early." Alexander kissed her forehead. "Meeting got cancelled. Thought I'd come home and spend time with my girls." He looked past her into the kitchen. "Do we have a guest?" Marissa stepped into view, and Alexander's eyes widened in shock. Why are there two of you?" Marina's brain scrambled for a lie. "Alexander, this is my sister, Marissa, my twin sister. She just showed up unexpectedly. We were just catching up." Alexander looked between them, stunned. "You never mentioned you had a twin." Marina forced a laugh. "We've been estranged for years. I didn't think it mattered." But Alexander's business instincts were pinging alarm bells. Something about this situation felt wrong. Marissa extended her hand with a dazzling smile. "Alexander Sanders, I've heard so much about you. Marina talks about you constantly." She said it in a way that made it sound both complimentary and somehow mocking. Alexander shook her hand warily. "It's nice to meet you. Marina, can we talk? Privately?" Marina nodded and followed him to his study, leaving Marissa alone in the living room. "What the hell is going on?" Alexander asked once the door closed. "Why didn't you tell me you had a twin?" "I barely know her," Marina said, which was technically true. "We grew up separately. She was adopted by a different family. We only reconnected a few years ago, and we don't have a good relationship." Also technically true, Marina was learning that the best lies were built on partial truths. Alexander studied her face. "You're scared of her. I can see it. What does she want?" Marina hesitated. "Probably money. She's always trying to get money from me. That's why we don't talk much." Alexander's protective instincts kicked in. "I'll give her whatever she wants to go away. How much?" Marina shook her head. "No, you can't just throw money at this. It'll make things worse. Let me handle it, please." Alexander wanted to argue, but saw the determination in Marina's eyes. "Okay, but I'm right here if you need me." "And Marina? If your sister is threatening you in any way, I need to know." Marina nodded, guilt eating her alive. "I know. Thank you for understanding." They returned to find Marissa holding Hope, cooing at the baby with a smile that looked genuine but felt calculated. "She's beautiful," Marissa said. "She looks just like you did as a baby." Amazing how genetics work, isn't it? The emphasis on genetics made Marina's blood run cold. She practically snatched Hope away. "I should feed her. Alexander, can you show Marissa out?" Alexander nodded and escorted Marissa to the door. At the threshold, Marissa turned back with a smile. "Marina, we'll talk soon. Don't forget our discussion." After she left, Alexander returned to find Marina shaking. "What did she say to you?" Marina forced herself to calm down. "Just sister stuff. Old issues. It's fine." But it wasn't fine. That night, after Alexander was asleep, Marina's phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. "You have 1 week to get me $100,000, or I tell him everything. And I mean everything, including Tyler, including your little plan. Think carefully, sis." Marina sat in Hope's nursery, watching her daughter sleep, and felt her perfect new life crumbling. She had 3 options. Pay Marissa and hope she'd go away. Unlikely. Tell Alexander the truth herself and beg for forgiveness, terrifying. Or run away with Hope and disappear. Impossible. She had nowhere to go. She was trapped, and the trap was of her own making. All her lies, all her manipulations were finally catching up to her. And the worst part was that she'd fallen genuinely in love with Alexander, which meant losing him would hurt far more than she'd ever anticipated. What Marina didn't know was that Richard had been watching the entire interaction with Marissa from his car parked down the street. He'd followed Alexander home intending to accidentally run into him, and instead witnessed something far more interesting. He'd taken photos of the twin sisters, captured Marissa's threatening body language, and now had ammunition to use however he saw fit. "This is going to be fun," Richard muttered, reviewing his photos. "Very fun indeed." The next morning at the office, Richard approached Marina's desk with a sympathetic smile. "Rough day yesterday? You look tired." Marina glanced up, exhausted from a sleepless night. "I'm fine, just busy." Richard perched on the edge of her desk. "I saw your sister visiting the mansion yesterday. Marissa, right? She's your twin." Marina went very still. Were you watching Alexander's house?" Richard's smile widened. I happened to be in the neighborhood, and I couldn't help but notice she seemed aggressive. Is everything okay? Marina forced herself to stay calm. Everything's fine. Family stuff. Richard nodded slowly. Of course, family can be complicated, especially when there are secrets involved. He let the word secrets hang in the air like a threat. Marina's heart raced. What do you want, Richard? His smile turned cold. Just looking out for you, Marina. I'd hate to see someone as lovely as you get hurt by complications from your past. He stood and walked away, leaving Marina shaking at her desk. She was being squeezed from both sides now, Marissa demanding money, Richard implying he knew something dangerous. And Alexander, sweet oblivious Alexander, kept trying to make her happy and plan their future, completely unaware that his new family was built on lies. Marina knew she had to make a choice soon. But every option led to loss and pain, and she had no idea which path would hurt the least. The only thing she knew for certain was that her Christmas miracle was about to turn into a nightmare. Marina had 3 days left to get Marissa $100,000 before her sister carried out her threat. She couldn't sleep, could barely eat, and spent every moment terrified that Alexander would notice something was wrong. But Alexander was distracted with a major business deal and assumed Marina's exhaustion was just from caring for Hope. You should take a day off, he suggested one morning over breakfast. Stay home, rest, let the nanny handle Hope for a few hours. Marina shook her head. I'm fine, really. But she wasn't fine. At work that day, Richard cornered her in the break room. You're running out of time, aren't you? He said quietly, pouring himself coffee. Marissa gave you a deadline, and you don't have the money. Marina's hands shook as she held her own cup. I don't know what you're talking about. Richard laughed softly. Please, I know everything, Marina. I know about the texts planning to target Alexander. I know about Tyler being Hope's real father. I know Marissa is blackmailing you. The only question is, what are you going to do about it? Marina set down her cup before she dropped it. What do you want, Richard? He stepped closer, his voice low and intimate. I want you. I've wanted you since you started working here. Leave Alexander, be with me, and I'll handle Marissa. I'll pay her off. I'll make all your problems disappear. Marina stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. Richard's expression was intense. I'm completely serious. I have money too, not as much as Alexander, but enough. And I wouldn't judge you for your past. I'd understand you in ways he never could. That's insane, Marina whispered. I love Alexander. I'm not leaving him for you or anyone else. Richard's expression hardened. Then you'd better figure out how to get that money, because if Marissa tells Alexander the truth, he's going to destroy you. Men like Alexander don't forgive betrayal. He'll take Hope away, he'll ruin your reputation, he'll make sure you end up right back on the streets where you started. He walked away, leaving Marina trembling against the counter. That night, Marina made a desperate decision. She would tell Alexander everything herself. The whole truth about how they'd met, about planning to target him, about Tyler, about all of it. Maybe if it came from her, if she was honest and remorseful, he would find a way to forgive her. It was a tiny hope, but it was all she had. She waited until Hope was asleep and Alexander was relaxed on the couch watching the news. Alexander, Marina said, her voice shaking, I need to talk to you about something important. He muted the TV and patted the couch beside him. Of course, what's wrong? You've seemed stressed all week. Marina sat down, her hands clasped tightly together. I need to tell you the truth about how we met. About who I really am. Alexander's expression shifted from concern to wary. What do you mean? Marina took a deep breath. Our meeting at the restaurant wasn't an accident. I planned it. I researched you for weeks. I knew where you ate, when you ate, everything. I deliberately approached you that night because I wanted your help. I was desperate and pregnant and homeless, yes. But I also specifically targeted you. Alexander went very still. You planned it. The whole thing. Marina nodded, tears already streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I was terrified and desperate, and I saw you as a way out of poverty. I needed someone to help me, and you seemed kind and wealthy, and I thought, her voice broke, I thought I could manipulate you into taking care of me and Hope. But then I got to know you, and I fell in love with you for real, and now I don't know how to fix what I've done." "Stop," Alexander said, his voice cold in a way Marina had never heard before. "Just stop talking." He stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. The silence stretched out painfully. Finally, he spoke without turning around. "So everything was a lie. The desperate pregnant woman at the restaurant, the gratitude, the—" His voice cracked. "The love, all of it was just part of your con." Marina stood and walked toward him. "No, that's not true. At first, yes, but I really do love you now." Alexander whirled on her, and Marina stepped back at the fury in his eyes. "How am I supposed to believe anything you say? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Oh, Alexander, I really love you now. Please forgive me and let me keep living in your mansion and spending your money." Marina flinched like he'd slapped her. "It's not like that." Alexander laughed bitterly. "Isn't it? You're a con artist, Marina. That's what con artists do. They make you believe whatever they need you to believe." "Please," Marina begged, reaching for him, "let me explain everything." Alexander stepped away from her touch. "Is hope even mine? Or was that a lie too? Did you get pregnant on purpose to trap some rich guy?" Marina's face crumpled. "Hope isn't yours biologically, but you've been her father in every way that matters." Alexander's expression went dead. "Get out." Marina's heart stopped. "What?" Alexander's voice was flat and final. "Get out of my house. Pack your things and leave. Tonight." "Alexander, please, where will we go? Hope is only 3 weeks old." Alexander turned away again. "That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you conned your way into my life." Marina sobbed openly now. "I'll leave, but please don't punish Hope for my mistakes. She's innocent. Let me stay just until I can find somewhere safe for us." Alexander's shoulders were rigid. "You have until morning. Then I want you gone. Both of you." Marina stumbled upstairs to the nursery where Hope slept peacefully, unaware that her world was falling apart. Marina started packing through her tears, throwing clothes and diapers into bags with shaking hands. Where could she go? She had no money of her own. Alexander had provided everything. She had no friends, except the people she'd met through him. She couldn't go back to the streets with a newborn baby. But she also couldn't stay where she clearly wasn't wanted. Around midnight, the doorbell rang. Alexander answered it and found himself face to face with a young man in his mid-20s, scruffy, tired-looking, with eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. "Can I help you?" Alexander asked coldly. The young man shifted nervously. "My name is Tyler Smith. I'm looking for Marina Davis. I heard she lives here now." Alexander's stomach dropped. "And who are you to Marina?" Tyler met his eyes. "I'm Hope's father, her biological father. I came to meet my daughter." Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him. This night just kept getting worse. "Come in," he said wearily, because what else could he do? Tyler followed him into the living room, and Alexander called upstairs. "Marina, you have another visitor." Marina appeared at the top of the stairs, saw Tyler and went pale. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" Tyler looked up at her with a mixture of anger and desperation. "I've been looking for you for months. Why didn't you tell me about the baby?" Marina came downstairs slowly, clutching the banister for support. "You said you didn't want anything to do with me or my baby. You called me trailer trash. You said—" Tyler interrupted. "I was scared and stupid, and I said things I didn't mean. But I've changed. I got a job. I got sober. I'm ready to be a father. I want to meet my daughter." Alexander watched this exchange with a cold detachment. "So you did know about the pregnancy," he said to Tyler. "She told you?" Tyler nodded. "Yeah, she told me. I freaked out and ran. But that was 6 months ago. I've grown up since then." He turned to Marina. "I'm sorry for how I acted, but I want to make it right. I want to be part of Hope's life." Alexander laughed bitterly. "Well, isn't this perfect? The biological father returns to claim his daughter from the con artist who manipulated a billionaire into playing house. What a heartwarming story." Marina flinched at his words. "Alexander, please." "Where is she?" Tyler interrupted. "Where's my daughter?" Marina's instinct was to refuse, to protect Hope from this complication, but she was so exhausted, so defeated, so broken by everything falling apart. "Upstairs," she whispered. "In the nursery." Tyler headed for the stairs, and Marina followed, leaving Alexander alone in the living room. He poured himself a drink with shaking hands and tried to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. In the nursery, Tyler approached the crib where Hope slept. When he looked down at the tiny baby, his eyes filled with tears. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She looks like my mom did as a baby." He reached down and gently touched Hope's tiny hand. The baby stirred and gripped his finger instinctively, and Tyler started crying openly. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry I ran away. But I'm here now. I promise I'll do better." Marina watched with a mixture of emotions she couldn't untangle. Guilt, relief, fear, sadness. "You can visit her," Marina heard herself saying. "But Tyler, I need you to understand something. I've been raising her alone. Alexander has been helping me, been a father to her. You can't just show up and take her away." Tyler looked up at her. "I'm not trying to take her away. I just want to be in her life. We can figure out custody and visitation and all that legal stuff. But Marina, I want to be her dad. Her real dad." The emphasis on real stung, even though Marina knew he was technically right. Downstairs, Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying your family reunion? By the way, Marina still owes me $100,000. Since you're the one with money, maybe you should pay up. Marissa." Alexander stared at the message in confusion, then anger. Marissa, the twin sister. Of course she was involved in this somehow. This whole thing was getting worse by the minute. When Marina came back downstairs alone, Tyler had stayed with Hope. She found Alexander on his third drink. "Tyler's with Hope," she said quietly. "He seems genuine about wanting to be a father." Alexander didn't look at her. "Good for him. At least someone in this mess is being honest." Marina sat down carefully on the opposite couch. "Alexander, I know you hate me right now. I know I've destroyed your trust. But I need to tell you about Marissa. Your twin sister who showed up conveniently after you'd secured your position in my life." Alexander's voice was bitter. "What about her?" Marina took a breath. "She's blackmailing me. She wants $100,000 or she'll—" She stopped. "Or she'll what? Tell me the truth. You should have told me yourself." Marina nodded miserably. "I couldn't get the money. I was going to tell you everything tonight anyway, but I was terrified. And Richard at work, he knows everything too, and he's been pressuring me." Alexander held up his hand. "Stop. Just stop. I don't care about Marissa or Richard or any of it. I care that you lied to me. That you made me fall in love with you as part of a con. That I've been living in a fantasy for 3 weeks while you played me for a fool." Marina stood up, desperate. "I know I lied at first, but my feelings are real now. I love you, Alexander. I love this life, but I love you more than the money or the house or any of it." "Prove it," Alexander said coldly. Marina blinked. "What?" Alexander set down his glass and looked at her directly for the first time since the confession. "You say you love me and not my money? Prove it. Give up everything, move into a modest apartment I'll rent for you, get a regular job that pays regular wages, live like a normal person for 3 months. If after 3 months you still claim to love me, if you can prove you're not just here for the lifestyle, then maybe I'll consider forgiving you." Marina stared at him in shock. "You want me to give up everything?" Alexander nodded. "Everything. The mansion, the nice clothes, the credit cards, all of it. You'll get a basic salary and basic living conditions. If you truly love me, you should be willing to live without my wealth to prove it." Marina thought about the tiny apartment, the struggle, the exhaustion of working a real job while caring for a newborn. Then she thought about losing Alexander completely, and the choice became clear. "Okay," Marina said quietly. "I'll do it. I'll prove to you that I've changed, that my love is real." Alexander studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or deception. "You'll start tomorrow. I've already made calls. There's an apartment in Queens. Basic but clean. You'll work as a cleaner again, same company you worked for before we met. I've arranged it." Marina felt humiliated but nodded. "Okay." Alexander stood. You can sleep in one of the guest rooms tonight. Tomorrow you move out. We'll see what happens after 3 months. As Marina left the room, she passed Tyler coming down the stairs. She's amazing, Tyler said with genuine wonder. Thank you for taking care of her while I was being an idiot. Alexander looked at this young man who had every biological right to hope that Alexander lacked. You're welcome. But Tyler, I need you to know something. I may not be Hope's biological father, but I've cared for her since before she was born. Whatever arrangement we make for the future, I want to stay in her life. Tyler nodded slowly. I respect that, man. You stepped up when I ran away. That means something. We can work something out, co-parenting or whatever. But I want my daughter to know who her real dad is eventually. Alexander felt a stab of pain, but nodded. Fair enough. They shook hands awkwardly, two men connected by a baby neither of them had planned for, but both wanted to protect. That night, Marina lay awake in a guest room that felt cold and foreign, despite being in the same house where she'd been so happy just hours earlier. She had 3 months to prove her love was real. 3 months to convince Alexander she'd changed. 3 months to somehow rebuild trust she'd shattered with her lies. And she'd have to do it all while working a demanding job, caring for a newborn, and dealing with Marissa's threats and Tyler's involvement. But even more complicated was Richard's threat still hanging over her head. The next morning, as Marina was packing to leave, Richard showed up at the mansion claiming he needed to discuss urgent business with Alexander. Actually, Richard said smoothly when Alexander answered the door, I'm here to see Marina. Is she available? Alexander's eyes narrowed. What business do you have with Marina? Richard smiled innocently. Just tying up some loose ends from the office. Won't take long. Marina appeared in the foyer with Hope in her arms and bags packed. When she saw Richard, her face went white. What are you doing here? Richard's smile widened. I heard about your new living arrangement. Shame about the downgrade, but I wanted to remind you, my offer still stands. You know where to find me when you're ready to be appreciated properly. Alexander stepped between them. What offer? He demanded. What the hell is going on? Richard shrugged. Just letting Marina know she has options. Not everyone would judge her so harshly for making smart choices when she was desperate. He met Alexander's eyes. Some of us understand that survival sometimes requires flexibility. Alexander's jaw clenched. Get out of my house, now. Richard held up his hands. Leaving. Marina, call me when you're ready. He walked away, whistling, and Alexander turned to Marina with fury in his eyes. What was that about? Marina shifted Hope to her other arm. He knows about my past, and he's been trying to use it to manipulate me into dating him. I've been refusing. Alexander's eyes narrowed. Define manipulate. Marina sighed. He said if I left you and dated him, he'd help me with Marissa's blackmail. I told him no. I told him I loved you and wouldn't leave you for anyone. Alexander processed this. So Richard, my finance manager, has been harassing my... He stopped. My what? What are you to me now, Marina? Marina's eyes filled with tears. I don't know, but I hope in 3 months I can be something again. Someone you trust, someone you love again. Alexander's expression softened slightly despite his anger. I'll have security walk you to your car. And Marina, be careful. Between Marissa and Richard, you've made some dangerous enemies. Marina nodded and carried Hope and her bags out to the modest car Alexander had arranged for her use. As she drove away from the mansion toward her tiny Queen's apartment, Marina felt like she was leaving paradise and heading back to hell. But this time, she was determined to fight her way back, not with lies and manipulation, but with honesty and hard work and genuine love. The question was whether 3 months would be enough time to prove what was in her heart, or if she'd already destroyed something too precious to ever repair. The apartment in Queens was tiny, cold, and smelled faintly of mildew. Marina stood in the middle of the single bedroom with Hope crying in her arms and felt despair wash over her. This was worse than being homeless in some ways. At least on the streets, she'd had no expectations. No memory of warmth and safety to contrast against. Now she knew exactly what she'd lost, and the pain was excruciating. It's okay, baby, Marina whispered to Hope. bouncing her gently. "Mommy's going to fix this, I promise." Her first day back at the cleaning company was humiliating. Her supervisor, a kind woman named Gloria, recognized her immediately. "Marina, I heard you'd moved up in the world. What are you doing back here?" Marina forced a smile. "Things changed. I need the work." Gloria studied her face with sympathy. "Relationship trouble?" Marina nodded, not trusting her voice. "Well, you're a good worker. I'm glad to have you back. But honey, you look exhausted." "How old is that baby?" "Almost a month," Marina said. "I don't have childcare during the day yet." Gloria's expression softened. "Bring her with you tomorrow. We'll set up a little space in the break room where she can sleep while you work. It's not ideal, but it's better than leaving her with strangers." Marina almost cried with gratitude. "Thank you, that means so much." So Marina's new routine began. Wake at 5 a.m., nurse Hope, pack her into a carrier, take the bus to work, clean offices while Hope slept in the break room, take the bus home, care for Hope all evening, collapse into exhausted sleep, repeat. Meanwhile, Alexander was struggling in his own way. The mansion felt emptier than ever without Marina and Hope. He threw himself into work, staying at the office until midnight, anything to avoid going home to the silent rooms that reminded him of what he'd lost. His mother called, concerned about his drawn face and short temper. "Alexander, darling, what's wrong? You've been different lately." Alexander didn't want to explain about Marina, about being conned by a woman he'd fallen in love with. "Just work stress, Mother, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He found himself thinking about Marina constantly, wondering if she was managing okay, if Hope was healthy, if they had enough to eat. He'd set up the apartment and job to test Marina's commitment, but he hadn't anticipated how much it would hurt him to know she was struggling. Was he being too harsh? Or was he protecting himself from further manipulation? He didn't know anymore. Tyler became a regular presence in Marina's life, visiting Hope 3 times a week in the cramped apartment. He brought diapers and formula and other supplies, trying to help however he could. "This place is rough," Tyler observed one evening, looking around the dingy apartment. "Why are you living like this? I thought you were with that rich guy." Marina rocked Hope while heating a bottle. "It's complicated. He's testing me to see if I really love him or just his money." Tyler frowned. "That's messed up. He should either forgive you or not. This middle ground is just torture." Marina shook her head. "I deserve it, Tyler. I lied to him about so much. He has every right to make me prove I've changed." Tyler sat down on the threadbare couch. "Look, I know I messed up too. I ran away when you needed me. But this guy, if he really loved you, he wouldn't make you suffer like this. Maybe you should just move on. Find someone who accepts you as you are." "Like who?" Marina asked bitterly. "Richard, who sexually harasses me at work. Or maybe I should go back to being homeless. Those are basically my options." Tyler stood up. "Or you could be with me. We have a daughter together. We could try to make it work as a family." Marina stared at him in surprise. "Tyler, you don't love me. And I don't love you. Not like that." Tyler shrugged. "Maybe love isn't the most important thing. Maybe stability and partnership matter more." Before Marina could respond, her phone buzzed. "Marissa." "Time's up, sis. You never paid me. Now I'm collecting directly from your billionaire. Thought you should know." Marina's blood ran cold. She immediately called Alexander, praying he'd answer. He did, on the 3rd ring. "Marina," his voice was guarded. "Alexander, please, Marissa is going to contact you. Don't believe anything she says." She was too late. She could hear a woman's voice in the background. "Is that her? Marissa's there now?" "She showed up at my office 15 minutes ago," Alexander said coldly. "We're just having a very interesting conversation about you." Marina felt panic rising. "Please, whatever she's telling you, I can explain." Alexander's voice was ice. "She's showing me text messages, Marina, messages between you and her from before Christmas. Found the perfect mark. He's rich and lonely. This will set us up for life." "Want to explain those?" Marina's world tilted. "Those messages are out of context." "They're dated December 15th, Alexander continued, 10 days before we accidentally met. They detail your entire plan, Marina. How you researched me, planned your approach, even practiced your lines. I'll tell him I'm 7 months pregnant, so he won't think I'm planning to trap him, but really I'm at 9 months, so the baby comes quickly and seals the deal. Marina was crying now. Alexander, yes, I planned it at first, but I already told you that. I confessed everything. You confessed some things, Alexander said. You didn't mention that you and Marissa planned this together. You didn't mention that she was supposed to get a cut of whatever you could get from me. You didn't mention that the entire relationship was a calculated con from day one, baby and all. Marina felt like she was drowning. That was the plan, but it's not what happened. I fell in love with you for real. Alexander interrupted. I'm done, Marina. Completely done. I'm cutting off the apartment, the job, all of it. You have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. The line went dead. Marina stood frozen while Tyler and Hope stared at her. What happened? Tyler asked. Marina couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Everything was crashing down around her, and this time there was no way to fix it. Marissa had destroyed her life with truth, terrible, context-free truth that made Marina look like a monster. I've lost him, Marina finally whispered. I've lost everything. That night, Marina hit rock bottom. She couldn't stop crying, couldn't eat, couldn't function. Tyler stayed with her, holding hope and trying to help, but there was nothing he could do. Around midnight, there was a knock on the door. Marina opened it to find Richard standing there with an expensive bottle of wine and a predatory smile. Heard your world fell apart. Thought you could use some company. Marina tried to close the door, but Richard blocked it with his foot. Get out, Marina said weakly. I'm not interested. Richard pushed into the apartment. Come on, Marina, you've got nothing left. No billionaire boyfriend, no mansion, no hope of ever climbing out of this poverty again. But I can help you. I can take care of you and Hope. All you have to do is give me a chance. Tyler appeared behind Marina. She said, get out, man. Don't make me throw you out. Richard sized up Tyler and apparently decided he wasn't worth fighting. Fine, but Marina, when you're ready to be practical instead of proud, you know where to find me. He left, and Marina collapsed against Tyler, completely broken. I can't do this, Marina sobbed. I can't keep fighting. I've lost Alexander. I'm about to lose this apartment. Marissa wins. Richard wins. Everyone wins except me. Tyler held her awkwardly. You haven't lost Hope. You haven't lost me. We're still here. But Marina barely heard him. All she could think about was Alexander's cold voice, the disgust in his tone when he'd heard those messages. He would never forgive her now, never trust her, never love her again. Meanwhile, Alexander sat in his office with Marissa, studying the messages she'd shown him. Something felt wrong about this whole situation, but he couldn't pinpoint what. Why are you showing me this now? He asked Marissa. What do you get out of destroying your sister? Marissa shrugged. She was supposed to cut me in. We planned this together, and then she fell for you for real and decided to keep everything for herself. That's not fair. So this is about money, Alexander said slowly. Marissa smiled. Everything's about money, Alexander. Marina knew that once. She was smart, calculating, knew how to play the game. But then she got soft, started believing in love and happily ever after. That's when she became useless to me. Alexander leaned back in his chair. And if I paid you, would you leave Marina alone? Marissa's eyes gleamed. For the right price, absolutely. But Alexander's business instincts were finally kicking in through his hurt and anger. Leave those messages with me. I want to have my IT team verify they're authentic. Marissa hesitated. Why wouldn't they be authentic? Alexander smiled coldly. Because you're a convicted con artist with a history of fraud. Forgive me if I don't take you at face value. Marissa's pleasant expression slipped. Fine, verify them. They're real. But Alexander, one more thing. Marina never told you about Carlos, did she? Who's Carlos? Alexander asked warily. Marissa's smile returned. Her dead boyfriend, the one who died in a motorcycle accident. Except here's the thing. He didn't die. Marina told you he died, but he's alive and well and living in New Jersey. Want his phone number? I bet he'd love to hear from the sucker who's been raising his maybe baby. Alexander felt sick. Hope isn't Tyler's daughter. Marissa shrugged. Who knows? Marina was sleeping with both of them around the same time. Could be Tyler's, could be Carlos's. She picked Tyler to blame because he was poor and stupid enough to believe her. After Marissa left, Alexander sat alone in his dark office trying to sort truth from lies. His IT team could verify the messages, but what about everything else? How much of what Marina had told him was real, and how much was just more manipulation? He wanted to believe she'd genuinely changed, that her love was real. But the evidence kept mounting against her, and he was tired of being fooled. 2 days later, Alexander's IT expert came back with results. "Sir, those messages Marissa showed you? They're authentic images, but the metadata shows they were created recently, not in December like the dates claim. Someone took old messages, edited them to look damaging, and created fake screenshots. It's a sophisticated forgery, but it's definitely fake." Alexander felt relief flood through him. "You're sure?" The expert nodded. "Positive. Whoever made these knew what they were doing, but they made small mistakes in the timestamp data." Alexander immediately called Marina, but her phone was disconnected. He tried the apartment. Nothing. Growing worried, he drove to Queens and found Marina's landlord putting her belongings in storage. "Where is she?" Alexander demanded. The landlord shrugged. "Don't know. She couldn't pay rent after you pulled your support. She left 3 days ago with her baby and that young guy who kept visiting. Didn't leave a forwarding address." Alexander felt panic rising. Marina was gone, disappeared into the city with Hope and presumably Tyler. He'd driven her away with his suspicion and his tests, and now he had no way to find her and tell her the truth. That Marissa had lied, that he believed Marina's love was real, that he wanted her back. He called Tyler's number. Marina had given it to him during custody discussions, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried Richard at work, hoping he might know something. "Richard, do you know where Marina is?" Alexander asked urgently. Richard's voice was smug. "As a matter of fact, I do. She's staying with me. Came to her senses and realized you were never going to forgive her. We're starting fresh together. Me, Marina, and Hope. Playing family." Alexander felt rage unlike anything he'd ever experienced. "If you've hurt her," Richard laughed. "Hurt her? I'm helping her, giving her the stability and acceptance you never could. Face it, Sanders, you lost." Alexander hung up and immediately drove to Richard's apartment across town. He pounded on the door until Richard opened it with an annoyed expression. "What do you want?" Alexander pushed past him into the apartment. "Where is she?" The apartment was empty except for Richard. No Marina, no Hope, no sign they'd ever been there. Alexander grabbed Richard's shirt. "You lied. She's not here." Richard smiled cruelly. "No, she's not. But I wanted you to feel what it's like to lose something precious. Hurts, doesn't it?" Alexander's fist connected with Richard's jaw before he could think. Richard went down hard, blood streaming from his split lip. "Where is she?" Alexander roared. Richard spit blood. "I don't know, you psycho. She wouldn't come with me. She's probably back on the streets where she belongs." Alexander left Richard groaning on the floor and spent the next 2 days searching every shelter, every church, every place he could think of where Marina might have gone. He finally found her on the 4th day, in the last place he'd thought to look, the restaurant where they'd first met. Marina was sitting at a table near the back, Hope sleeping in a carrier beside her, eating a sandwich someone had apparently bought her. She looked thin, exhausted, defeated, but still beautiful. Alexander approached slowly, afraid she'd run if she saw him. "Marina?" he said softly. She looked up and her eyes widened with shock. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" He sat down across from her without asking permission. "I've been looking everywhere for you. The messages Marissa showed me, they were fake. My IT team proved it. She edited old conversations to make you look worse than you were." Marina stared at him. "What?" Alexander reached across the table and took her hand. "I believe you, Marina. I believe you fell in love with me for real. I believe you've changed. I was wrong to test you, wrong to push you away, wrong about everything." Marina started crying. Again, always crying, but this time with hope mixed into the pain. "You believe me?" Alexander nodded. "I do. And I'm sorry. I should have trusted you when you first told me the truth. I should have—" Marina interrupted by standing up and walking around the table. She threw her arms around him and held on like she was drowning. "I thought I'd lost you forever," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I thought—" "You didn't lose me," Alexander said, holding her tight. "I lost you. But I'm here now, and I'm not letting go again." He pulled back and cupped her face in his hands. "Marina Davis, I love you. Not despite your past, but because of everything you've overcome. You're the strongest, bravest person I've ever met. Will you please come home? You and Hope both." Marina nodded, unable to speak through her tears. "Yes," she finally whispered. "Yes, we'll come home." 6 months later, on Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Alexander and Marina stood at the altar in a small chapel decorated with white flowers and twinkling lights. Hope, now 7 months old, was being held by Tyler, who'd become an unexpected friend and co-parent. The ceremony was simple and perfect, with only close friends present. Marina wore a simple white dress, no veil, no elaborate production, just love and commitment and truth. "Marina," Alexander said during his vows, "you came into my life when I was empty and alone, and you filled my world with meaning. You taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other every day, even when things are hard. I choose you today, tomorrow, and forever." Marina's voice shook as she spoke her own vows. "Alexander, I came to you with lies and left with truth. You saw past my mistakes to the person I wanted to become. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I promise to spend the rest of my life earning your trust and loving you with everything I have." They kissed as husband and wife, and Hope made happy baby sounds that made everyone laugh. Afterward, at a small reception, Tyler approached them with a genuine smile. "Congratulations. Hope's lucky to have both of you." Alexander shook his hand warmly. "Thank you for being part of this, Tyler, for being a real father to her." Tyler nodded. "We're all family now. Weird family, but family." As for Marissa, she'd been arrested for extortion and fraud. Richard had been fired from Sanders Industries and faced his own legal troubles for harassment. But Marina no longer cared about revenge or justice for those who tried to destroy her. She had everything she needed right here. A husband who loved her, a daughter who was thriving, and a future built on honesty instead of lies. That night, as they drove home through snow-covered streets with Christmas lights twinkling everywhere, Marina looked at Alexander and felt overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you for finding me that day at the restaurant, for looking for me when I disappeared, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Alexander squeezed her hand. "Thank you for giving me a family, for teaching me what really matters, for being brave enough to tell me the truth even when you were terrified." Hope babbled happily from her car seat in the back, and Marina laughed. "She's agreeing with us." They pulled up to the mansion, no longer just Alexander's house, but their home now, and carried Hope inside. The Christmas tree was lit in the living room, and presents were piled underneath. But the greatest gift had already been given. A second chance, freely offered and gratefully accepted. As they settled Hope in her crib, Marina and Alexander stood together looking down at their sleeping daughter. "Do you think she'll understand someday?" Marina asked quietly. "About how we met? About all the complications?" Alexander wrapped his arm around his wife. "We'll tell her the truth when she's old enough, that sometimes people make mistakes, but love can heal anything if we're brave enough to fight for it." Marina leaned against him, finally at peace. "Merry Christmas, Alexander." He kissed the top of her head. "Merry Christmas, Marina. Welcome home." The end. Thank you for reading. This was the story of Marina and Alexander, two lonely people who found each other on Christmas Eve, weathered lies and betrayal and pain, and ultimately chose love over bitterness. They learned that second chances are precious gifts, that truth is worth fighting for, and that family isn't just about how you start. It's about choosing each other every single day. Remember, everyone has a past, everyone makes mistakes, but redemption is always possible for those brave enough to seek it. You came into my life when I was empty and alone, and you filled my world with meaning.